Hey guys, welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to learn about shared preferences in Android. I know in the introduction of this course, in the first video of this playlist, I talked about that we would learn data store. But the thing is that data store basically works with coroutine flows, and coroutine, I believe that is with pretty much advanced topic at this stage for whoever is watching this playlist. So in the future, when we'll cover the code routine, after that we'll create a video on data store. So don't worry, we are gonna cover that. For now, we are going to go with SAP references for now. So let's see why we need SAP references, how we use that, and how to implement that, right? So yeah, let me just remove all this code from main activity.kt, and we don't need item lv as well. So let me close it, and here let me just remove it as well. So basically SAP reference is nothing but you can take this as a file that in which we can store some values in key value pairs, right? For example, at the when user logs in your application, you can store the id of that user in that file with a in the form of key value pairs. And later when user opens the app again, then you check if there's any value of the user id inside that file or not. And if that value exists in the file, you just don't show the login screen, and you directly move to the main screen of your application. And if there is no such value of user id in that file, you show the user the login screen, right? So let me just show how to store values in that set preference file, in that file with the help of set preference. So let me just create an edit text on the screen, uh, which will be match parent, height, wrap content, id will be ed, and ed key, then hint will be enter the key. We can add the key manually as well. Let me just enter the key manually. I'm just gonna take the value. I'm gonna enter the key manually and enter the name. Enter your name. Okay, and let's just give constraint to this edit text. I'm just gonna go to design tab, constraint to left, and margin left 32, constraint to left, right, margin right 32, constraint to top, and I'm gonna give margin as 100 dp. Now go back to split screen, and I'm gonna take another widget, button. Both height and width will be wrap content, id will be button, and text on that will be click me. Okay, I'm just gonna write take me to sample activity. So yeah, let me just give margin to, oh sorry, constraint to the button, constraint horizontally to parent, and for the constraint top I'm gonna give it to this edit text here, and I'm gonna give margin of, let's say, 50 dp. Okay, so here we have a screen. Now let's go back to our sample activity, where we'll show the value that we are going to store in our preferences file. So in activity sample xml, I'm gonna take a text view, wrap content, sample text, sorry, text will be text size will be 25 dp, and text color will be black too, so that you can see it better. And I'm gonna keep id as tv value. Okay, let's give constraint horizontally parent and horizontally vertically parent. So it's in the middle of the screen. So now go back to the main activity.kt file. We don't need the sample activity XML file anymore. So first of all, to use type references, we are going to declare a global variable. So let init var sp of type share preferences, and we are going to initialize that variable inside our onCreate method. Sp equals to get share preferences. Now here we have to, as the first parameter, we have to give the name of our file so that we can get an access to that file through that name. So I'm gonna name our file user underscore data, and as the second parameter we have to give context dot mode private. Mode private basically means that no other application in our phone can access this file rather than this application itself, right? So that's the meaning of that mode private. Now we have to take another variable of to edit things into that shared reference file. So I'm gonna name it ed equals to sp dot edit, and then to save values we first need to make a variable of edit text of type edit text equals to find view by id r dot id dot ed value. Then okay, it's a conflict, so I'm gonna just name it edit text, and well button of type button equals to find view by id r dot id dot button. Now to store the value we write ed dot put string. Now here we have to give the key to the value, so I'm just gonna give key as user name, and as a value I'm just gonna put edit text dot to string, right? And then we just have to call ed dot and now here we have two methods that we can use, ed dot apply and ed dot commit. Now the difference between them is that apply works asynchronously and commit is will work synchronously. So we obviously want this to happen asynchronously, so we use ed dot apply. So that's it, we don't have to do anything else here. This will store the value of this edit text with this key into this file. Now let's click on that button dot set on click listener, and let's start the activity in which we will pass the intent this, and we want to go to sample activity dot class dot java. Now inside sample activity, if you want to if you want to access that data from the shared preference file, we again need a variable of shared preferences. So let's create sp equals to get shared preferences. The name of the file was user underscore data. To make sure that you write the same as you have given before, and other parameter will be context dot mode private. Now here we have a text view, so let's take a variable for text view as well. Text view equals to find view by id r dot id dot tv value. Let me make sure it's the correct one. Yeah, tv value. So now we have to fetch the value from this app reference. So let's take a string value equals to sp dot get string. Now here we will use that key that we used, same key that we used to store the value, which was let me just copy it to make sure I don't mess up. the key was username, and I'm gonna give the key here. And as a second parameter, we have to give the default value to the string. For now, I'm just gonna give the null string here as a default value. So we have the value here in this variable. Now we just have to show that in the text view, tv.text equals to string value. So let's run our application and see how it works. Then we'll see the functionality of basic functionality or basic uses of stat reference in the login system in the most simplest way, right? So let's let the application run. So here is the, let me give the value great developers, and let's go to the sample activity. Here it should have the value great developers written here. So let's, okay, so okay, I got it. So the issue is, we are getting the value of edit text here outside the button click listener. So we have to put this inside the button click listener and then store it to the our shared reference file. So now what happens here, when we click our button, it takes whatever value is written in the edit text and put that as a value in here, and then apply it asynchronously, and then it goes to the sample activity through this intent. So yeah, let's run our application. Nothing was wrong here, so it should work now. Yeah, so let's write gray developers and click here, and we have written here on the text view here. So now let's see how we can directly check for this SAP reference value directly. If there's the data inside this SAP reference, we can go directly onto the main activity. In our case, it's the sample activity, right? So here, before anything happens on our code, I'm gonna make a function. I'm gonna call a function. Before calling, let's just make it first. So let's create a function check user login, and inside which we will, okay, it will return boolean. Now let's just call if statement. If SAP reference file sp dot contains any value with the key of username, then directly start this intent, okay, or return false, and here return true. So now okay, actually we don't really need to return anything here. We can directly, we have already given the condition here what we want to do, so we don't have to return any boolean from here. Now we just have to call this function before we do anything else in our application. So let's just run our application, and this time we have already saved the value of our username with this key. So if we when we run our application, it will directly go to this function, and in this function we have the value with this key. So if we directly go to the sample activity without executing this code, so let's just run our application and see how it happens. Okay, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I have to put this function before setting this layout on this uncreate method. So now it should work. I'm sorry, my bad. So okay, it is crashing, and let's see why it is crashing. Main activity dot 39 if user sp dot contain late init property has not been initialized. Okay, so what happens here is that when we call this method here, sp is not yet initialized, so we have to get this line in here as well. So or instead of that, we can directly put that line here so that it gets initialized. Now if we run our application, the sp variable is now initialized. So if we check for the value inside it, and it will and as it is there, so it will directly take us to the sample activity without taking us to the main activity again. So that's how you create functionality of login. If you save the login data inside a shared preference, and before displaying the login activity, you call this method and check if the login details are saved in the shared preference or not. And if it's saved already, you go directly to the main activity of your application. So yeah, that's it for this video, and this is how you use for SAP reference to store the values and fetch the values from the SAP reference as well. So that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next video.